Hello, we're back again with New Mexico Business Talk. And in this segment, we'll be talking to Leland Titus. A little bit about New Mexico Business Talk is we talk to thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and just about anybody that has something of value to say. So part of our vision is to also educate the community. So again, I'm here with Leland Titus from Santa Fe Realty, ABQ Realty, and LelandTitus.com. Did I get that right?
Yes, so Santa Fe Realty Unlimited, Albuquerque Realty, and then my personal website is LelandTitus.com. So if you feel like reading my backstory, any of that stuff, you can definitely go to that website. Well, thank you, Eric. I appreciate you having us on. I've been doing real estate in Santa Fe since 2006, I'm sorry. And about 3 years ago, we branched out to Albuquerque. I have a great team up here as well, and it's been quite a journey in real estate over the last 17 years. I got into it not really kind of knowing what I was getting into. I was a young kid, 21 years old. I looked back maybe 2-3 years ago, and I was like, "Holy cow, I have a career!" So it's been a rewarding thing and pretty interesting journey.
So let's talk a little bit about how that journey started. Where does your entrepreneurial spirit come from? Like, how did that?
Well, I don't know. I've always been an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I've always looked for my own way of doing things and made my own way. From the point of being a young kid, I was not very conforming. I always looked at alternative ways of doing schooling, business, any of that stuff. But ultimately, I like to say that it was kind of, I don't know, it was almost like destiny. I always had an interest in real estate, and when I was 21, I just kind of made that jump. I had just bought a home, bought a beautiful home in Santa Fe, and I said, well, you know what? And at the time, I had a couple other businesses. But I really, really enjoyed that process of buying a home. And so I just decided to kind of look into what it was going to take to become a licensed realtor and start selling homes for everybody else. And did the schooling, did the licensing, got in there, and started working it, and actually quit my other business, shut that down so I could really focus on real estate. And right as I got my foot in the door, I did my first couple sales, the market tanked. It was 2006 to 2008, right there, right before the biggest housing crash of our history, pretty much. And
So how did you survive that time period? Like, what did you have to do to keep the ball rolling in sales? And
it was interesting. I just had to keep my head down and work. I mean, work hard. I mean, really, that was the key. There was, you couldn't give up. You had to just keep going. And really, I started focusing on helping people that were in foreclosure, helping people that were, owed way more than their house was worth. And so I started doing what we call short sales, helping consumers negotiate with the banks to let them out of the debt for the property that, was no longer worth what they owed. Some people were, in debt hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so basically what I would do is I'd start calling these people who were being sued by the banks to lose their homes. People would think that, the Lord had sent me to them because they were in these dire straits and just in such need of some guidance. And
so you were able to find ways to like fix or help solve the problem?
Yeah, unfortunately when it's to the point where someone hasn't made a mortgage payment in a year or something, there's not much you can do to fix it, but I could help them move forward, in a calculated way, help them, plan the future a little bit, and help them get out of debt, help them not owe the bank, hundreds of thousands of dollars in the end. So we were able to move forward with grace, I would say.
Yeah.
Versus just being trampled by the process
and lose everything.
Right. And so that was a tough time. And I helped a lot of people through that, which was very interesting. It was always something,
Everybody has a story.
Yeah, and why they were there. There was divorces. There's deaths. There's always something going on. Real estate is a relationship type business. That's why I like it, is because I like building relationships. I like helping people. I like, problem solving, thinking outside the box. But yeah, so there's always something going on, right? And real estate is in all of our lives, whether or not we acknowledge that. We're either renters, we're owners, we're investors. Any form of that, you're involved in real estate, right? And the markets are cyclical, so sometimes it's better to be an investor, sometimes it's better to be a homeowner, sometimes it's better to be a seller. So it's always changing, and I like to be able to help people in no matter what circumstance they're in.
So a lot of it for you probably is being able to see what's coming down the pipeline and the road, and look out for, okay, if it's a buying time or a selling time or an investing time.
Right.
And
well, I mean, so in my eyes, real estate's it's always a buying time. If you can buy, you should, because it's better than renting. You're not paying someone else's mortgage; you're paying your own mortgage. Even right now, with the interest rates climbing daily, I mean, today they just raised by 0.75 basis points, so everything jumped up to a little bit over 7. People are freaking out, which is understandable, because 4 or 5 months ago it was we were in the 2s and 3s. But 7% interest of your own home versus paying someone's whole mortgage plus some on top of that is a lot better to be an owner, I think. So, and then over the last so let's look at the average term of a mortgage, right? 30 years, right? If you look at the last 30 years, any home someone purchased 30 years ago, we were 300% what they bought it for, and you can't beat that. So as an investment, most millionaires in the United States are made through real estate.
okay,
And it's from buying and holding long term. It's you buy a house, you live in it, you enjoy it, and it builds equity, it builds your net worth, it builds your wealth, and you don't have to put up with a landlord. You're not paying his rent or her rent. You're not you get to choose your own features in your home. You get to make it your own. You get to raise your babies there.
even your neighbors.
Your yard, your dogs. It's great. Home ownership it's fundamental in the American dream. I think it's something that everyone should do. And yeah, right now the interest rates are a little higher, but if you look historically, like all of our parents, they remember interest rates at like 15, 20% even.
Yeah, definitely.
And so right now at 7%, it's not that bad.
So I really appreciate your optimism, because you make it sound like, hey, it's still, even though those interest rates are high, it's still a good time to buy.
Yeah, I mean, any time you can buy is a good time. Pretty much throughout history, there have been a few times where our market has dipped, but it always comes back. And you can Google, house prices versus inflation. Right now, inflation's a big thing, right? Well, when inflation starts rising, what the big investors, the power investors do is they buy real estate, because real estate outperforms inflation almost every time.
So over time.
So if you have your cash in a bank, you're losing money. If you have your cash in real estate, you're probably doing pretty good.
Or once you buy a car, once you drive it off the lot, you lose money on it.
And it's going down in value, yeah.
So you're better off buying
cars, toys, boats. I mean, you're gonna lose that whole amount no matter what, right? Over the years, you may get some enjoyment out of it, but it's definitely not going to build equity. It's not going to build your wealth. It's not going to build your family's wealth. It's not going to build your legacy, right? That's another thing, is that in life we're trying to support our kids. We're trying to build wealth and take care of our next generation for the most part. A lot of that generational wealth has come through real estate. People inherit homes, they inherit investment properties, and it sets them up for their future, really.
So speaking of future, so like let's say it's a young family, what would you recommend for that young family? How do they get started? How do they, where would you recommend that they get started in it?
Well, so there are programs for first-time home buyers. So I would say that if you're a first-time home buyer, there's definitely some ways to get in the door for little to no money almost, You can.
When you say
borrow-
first-time home, I hear that all the time, but what does that mean?
Well, the definition of first-time home buyer is it's kind of loose, right? It's not necessarily someone that's never owned a home. It's someone that's never owned a home in the last 3 years.
Okay.
So you can qualify for these programs if you haven't owned a home in 3 years. But the point of the matter is that an FHA loan is 3.5% down. So say you're talking $100,000 house, you got to come up with $3,500. That may be a barrier of entry for people. If they don't have that $3,500 and they're a new buyer, there are programs that will lend them that $3,500 as well. So you can get into a home with little to no money down. So if you're a new family and you're trying to build a future, what I would recommend is you buy something now, because when you're younger you're making less money. Historically people they start their career and then they go up in earnings and living means, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if you're a young family, buy now, buy what you can afford. Don't buy something that's going to stretch you too far. And then, you reevaluate in 5 years.
Okay.
If you can afford something bigger in 5 years, maybe you take that first property and turn it into an investment. You rent it out to somebody who can't necessarily afford to buy or is not in the position to buy. And now what you're doing is if you can offset the mortgage and you can maybe make a little bit every month, you're going to turn into an investor. In 15, 20 years, you're going to have that property paid off in full. And now you're, I don't know, depending on how big of a property, you're a $250,000 of money that's not,
So the best
it's equity.
So the best advice is just get your foot in the door on something, and then reevaluate in 5 years.
Yeah, if you ask someone that bought a home 15 years ago, even 5 years ago, 30 years ago, if you ask someone that's bought a home, any number of years ago, for the most part, no one's going to tell you it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
No one's going to be sad. No one's going to have an issue with it, unless they messed up or something happened along the way. Where there are those cases where, if you get into that trouble, you can give me a call and I'll help you navigate that situation of a foreclosure or forbearance or anything that we need to figure out. Because I am that problem solver. I like to help people. So.
It sounds like, a lot of, like you said, a lot of people, they get to the point where they're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? The but time doesn't really run out. There's steps that you could take to.
Well, the worst thing you can do is ignore a problem. It's with any problem. If you ignore it, it gets bigger, right?
Yeah.
Same with anything going on with your home. If you're having issues paying for it, or the bank's coming after you for some reason, deal with it up front versus waiting to the last minute. It's always a worst case scenario when it's put off, right? But there are things that we can do to help alleviate the pain of it. And unfortunately, there may be some people going into situations like that. It happens all the time. It's a normal thing. So if you are going into that, feel free to reach out. If you have any issues with your bank or whatever I can help with. But also, on the plus side on the brighter side of things, I think right now America in general is in a better standing position than they ever have been. There's less foreclosures going on, and that part of that is because they tightened up the lending qualifications from that that 2008 when I started, where they were just giving money away.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore. So we're not going to have the foreclosures and the market crash like we ever had, because the people that own a home nowadays generally are paying what they can qualify for versus at that time people were getting homes they couldn't really qualify for. They were just printing money basically.
Yeah. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll pick up on the next segment where we left off, and we look forward to seeing our audience again. So we'll be right back.
Home to me means family and peace.
Home is my refuge.
Where you can be yourself.
Warm comfort.
Stability.
Love.
Good memories.
Safety.
There's nothing like home.
All right, it's Eric Martinez here with New Mexico Business Talk. You could find us on NMBizTalk.com. Our website will be going live here very shortly, very soon. And I'm here with Leland Titus talking about realty and real estate and interest rates.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Eric. It's been a pleasure. So I've been doing real estate in New Mexico for 17 years. Been through some ups and some downs. Kind of markets change and people's outlook on the market changes. I think a lot of that's affected by media. Here we are in media, right? But right now I think we're in this kind of weird place where no one knows what's going to happen. Everyone's kind of forecasting doom and gloom, or hey, it's going to be all right. And a lot of that's driven by the interest rates. The Feds today just raised it, 0.75%. So now we're looking.
What does that mean?
So what they're trying to do is they're trying to hedge inflation, and basically slow down the money movement, slow down our economy for some reason, But I'm not an expert on inflation. I don't really know the ins and outs.
You're in realty, not
of why they're doing
economist.
That. Yeah, I know it affects my buyers. It affects my sellers through the mortgage rates, right? Because right now, for instance, today they announced a 0.75% raise, and this is our third raise in almost 2 months maybe, which is really pushing interest rates up in the mortgage industry. And what that's doing is making the home affordability go down, right? Mm-hmm. And it's making the buyers less apt to jump on a home. It's making the sales take a little bit longer. Luckily, it hasn't completely stopped our market. The Albuquerque Realty market is still rolling pretty strong. We peaked in Albuquerque in about March. What I mean by peak was that, the housing prices were the highest, the demand was the highest, and ultimately the supply was the lowest. We had a little over 1,000 homes on the market at that time. Right now we're about 1,800 in the whole Albuquerque market. So, the plus side is, even though you're having to pay more interest, there's less competition, because we're coming out of this market where it was just insane. Buyers were having to compete for almost any home. They were having to buy a home without inspections, without appraisals. They were having to waive all their rights and contingencies, which was just crazy and frankly not good, right? It wasn't a healthy situation for buyers. It wasn't a healthy situation for them to move forward and buy these homes without getting proper inspections, and a lot of people ended up with some messes on their hands. But it was what people had to do to get a home, because everybody was trying to get a home at that time. And we were getting 10, 15 offers on a house, and it was driving homes up, right? And so people are talking about, wow, the interest rates are high, but in March people were paying $60,000 over asking, right?
Oh wow.
They're paying $20,000 over asking if they could afford it, and it was pushing a lot of buyers out that couldn't afford to come up with that type of money, or to go over asking, and to waive appraisals and to waive inspections. And so it was really kind of disheartening to see the average people, the working class people that didn't have $100,000 in cash in the bank. We'd go out and we'd see 10, 15 homes, and we'd write an offer, and we'd be one of 15 offers, and we, of course, someone would come over the top with a big pile of cash, and we'd go back out the next day and try again, and look at another house and write another offer. And I had some people I showed 15, 20 homes to, and we wrote 15, 20 offers on and they were just normal people that didn't have the extra means, the piles of cash, to really to go to win these bidding wars. And it was really kind of sad and tough, and persistence was frustrating. It was beyond frustrating, but persistence was key. I had many people that decided after a few that they said, okay, well, maybe this isn't for me, right? But there were those that needed the home. They needed a place. They didn't have a place to go to, and they had that need. So we were able to get most of them into homes
through perseverance and
and just luck and it was crazy. We'd show up at a house, there'd be a line of people, and we'd write an offer, and it would be in a line of offers. And so now it's not that way. The average house is on the market now for 20 some days, 30 days in the Albuquerque market. Albuquerque homes, they're sitting a little bit longer, and so it's nice. It's slowed down a little bit. Yeah, everybody's talking doom and gloom about the interest rates, but at least people are able to get homes, and they're not having to come in with a bunch of money.
So what is the new interest rate? Give us an example of what this 0.75% rate increase. What does that mean for the average person that doesn't know a lot about real estate and mortgages and
right? Well, it ultimately means that you can afford less home, right? Because as the interest rate goes up, the amount of home you can afford per your income is going to go down. But in today's market, the homes that we're selling in Albuquerque and all of northern New Mexico, you're able to then negotiate down more, right? So instead of having to go above and beyond, now we're able to negotiate down. The average home right now in Albuquerque is selling at like 96% of asking price, versus in March it was like somewhere near 105%.
Oh wow!
And that's and the selling prices after inspections and renegotiations and different things. So right now the interest rates are making it less affordable for people to buy homes. You can buy less home, meaning you can qualify for less money, but you're able to negotiate, and homes aren't selling for super high prices like they were.
So like, can you buy a home, pay the bigger interest rate, and then maybe refinance in 5 years? Is that, or how does that?
Well, yeah,
what's a smart thing to do in that case?
I mean, you definitely want to buy within your means, right?
Okay.
You don't want to overstretch yourself. If you got to pay attention to where you're at, because in 5 years, there's no guarantee interest rates are going to be lower.
Okay.
As I mentioned before in a previous segment, our parents were they owned homes at 15-20% interest, right? So 7% is historically low, right?
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't be buying a home planning on refining in 2 years, and hopefully that's the case. Hopefully we get back down to 3% and everyone can refi, and it's going to be great times. But that may not be the case. There are certain loan programs in today's market where, if you're planning on owning a home for a couple of years, we can get you like a 2-1 buy down loan, which basically is, for a certain amount of money up front, you're going to pay a lower payment for 2 years up front. And that could be a situation where you're going to live here for a couple of years as a contractor, or maybe you're thinking about, there can be so many situations where you're only going to own a home for a couple of years. And home ownership is a great tax shelter. It's a way to build wealth, right? So it's always recommended. But depending on your situation, there's usually a loan that we can work to help you with that.
So do you work with a range of financing institutions, or do you have a favorite?
I mean, yeah, I have my preferred lenders. I'm not going to advertise for anybody on here, but yeah, definitely they're my preferred lenders. But there's so many lenders out there that offer amazing packages. There's programs for first-time home buyers. There's programs for investors. I got some great investor loans right now, which are amazing through a couple of my lenders. So it's interesting. Yeah, we have higher rates. The affordability is down, but it still doesn't. There's no way that renting compares to home ownership, right?
Well, I like the advice that you gave, where you said buy within your means. So that just makes so much sense. And compared to 2008, everybody was just lending money out to the people that their means weren't there.
Yeah, and I did it. They gave me a loan on a home that I shouldn't have been able to afford, and I couldn't afford it when it was an adjustable rate mortgage, and the rate adjusted up, and the mortgage payment, I jumped by like $800. and there was no way I could afford it with the current situation I was in, and so I ended up being one of those homeowners that I had talked about to you previously, where I had to negotiate with the bank and allow them to sell the property, and I was able to get about $100,000 forgiven, luckily, so I didn't have to owe that debt to the bank or have it on my credit, but. I was one of the first ones to do a short sale, and then that became a niche that I worked. I do a lot of bank owns still. I do short sales for people. I like to really just help people, and it's kind of you can help them in so many ways.
And I'm sure everybody has their own specific need that you're able, with your years of experience, that you're able to kind of like help that individual situation.
Yeah, I've been doing this, I think I'm going on 18 years now.
Okay.
In real estate, there's not much that I haven't seen. And, I like to pride myself on being one of the ones that actually tries to solve the problems, think outside the box. And I've been able to, there's a lot of agents that wouldn't touch some of the deals that I've been able to help people get through, just because it's so much work or tedious, or they just don't know how to do it. But I enjoy figuring things out.
We have about 2.5 minutes left on the segment. So I guess what I want to do is, what would you recommend to the person that's looking for a place? Where do they start? Do they call a broker like yourself, or if they're trying to sell a home? Like, where do they start? Where does one start to look for a home?
Well, ultimately, you definitely want to work with a professional. There are so many websites nowadays and such, but really you want to be sure who you're talking to, that they have experience, that they know what they're doing, or at least that they have the backing of someone like myself that knows what they're doing. I mean, I have many great agents that work under me currently, and I help them through the process from the beginning, and we take on their clients like their family, and we take care of them, and make sure that everyone's taken care of. But ultimately, you want to start with a good broker. You can, of course, reach out to me. You can reach out through my website if you like. I'd love to help people.
Let's go ahead and run down through the website addresses again.
Yeah. So my personal website is lelandtitus.com. I think that's up on the screen now. We also have ABQ Realty Search, and that's for our Albuquerque Realty.
Okay.
And then I also have Santa Fe Realty Ultd.com. And that's for our Santa Fe Realty branch. So we have teams in both cities, and work pretty much all of northern New Mexico. And really all of New Mexico. We sell homes all over the state, so we can help anybody anywhere. And really kind of, even if you're not looking to buy or sell, you just have some real estate questions, reach out. I'd love to chat with you. I got 10 minutes of my day for almost anybody that has a problem that, hopefully I can help and solve,
Well, that's good to know. Leland, I really appreciated this interview. I thought it was great. I'd love to have you back on here again so we could talk about current real estate, what's going on in the marketplace, maybe some suggestions, some good advice, and help our audience get
awesome.
Whatever their real estate needs are.
I appreciate you having me on, and I love talking real estate. It's a passion of mine. And
obviously, yeah.
So here we are. Let's do it again. I would love that.
Okay, awesome. We look forward to having you again. And on that note, I'd love to invite all of you guys to continue watching us on New Mexico Business Talk. You can find us on NMBizTalk.com or NewMexicoBusinessTalk.com. And we look forward to this is our second interview, and we're going to be bringing you a lot more great thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and people that have something great to say here in New Mexico and help you find what you're looking for.